Hello, this is my second video in this Mindfulness Made Easy for Neurodivergency series. Today I want to talk about the breath. For some of us, the breath is a very tricky thing, especially if we've got trauma related to the sound of breathing. I know people who can't bear the sound of other people's breathing because of things that have been done to them, and it can be a trigger for trauma. It can also just be very challenging to focus on the breath. For those who can, I'll explain why it's so valuable, because we have it all the time. It's a completely portable focus for our meditation. If we're not breathing, we're probably not alive. Certainly, we may be unconscious, but we're not going to be meditating when we're unconscious. So if you're conscious, then you are breathing. And breath as an anchor is very helpful. I find it very helpful myself. I talked in the last video about taking a few breaths. And you don't have to force your breathing. You just go in and out. Preferably in through your nose and out through your mouth or nose. It doesn't matter which. But mouth breathing is not terribly good for our brains. It's much better if we can nose breathe. So in through the nose and out through the mouth. Yoga also tends to use, many traditions use this approach to breathing. If you're just trying to clear your brain, you can do alternate nostril breathing. So you breathe in with one nostril and you breathe out with the other one. Then you breathe in with this one. And this helps to activate both nostrils, because most of the time you're mainly breathing with one nostril and they switch over during the day. But of course they seem to affect one side of the brain or the other. So if we want to really get our brains working and focusing, then to try and activate both nostrils and both sides of the brain would be a very handy thing. So there's lots of things you can play around with the breath. You can count the breath, you can match breath to your walking. For instance, if you're doing a walking meditation, you could count the number of breaths in, the number of steps you do to the in-breath and the number of steps you do to the out-breath. The out-breath is always slightly longer, so you'll probably need more steps for that one. You can try focusing by counting to 10 breaths, and if you lose track, you start again at the beginning. That's another way of trying to train your mind to focus. Don't try and do it for too long. Again, as I said, repetitions are more important, so just doing 10 breaths on a regular basis and counting them through the day would be more beneficial to you than trying to do 10 times 10 times 10 or whatever. It's very easy to set goals for ourselves which are unreachable and then say, oh, I'm failing, I'm not going to bother to do this. And that's one of the hindrances, is this doubt of setting ourselves challenges that are too hard, especially with neurodivergency and trauma, and then not being able to achieve them and then using that to beat ourselves up with. That's not very helpful. What we have to do is accept where we are, what we can achieve, and how we can move from there. And that's the important thing, really. Acceptance is so important in this practice anyway. For everybody, acceptance is one of the key teachings, but acceptance of self, acceptance of others, non-judgment, it's all part of the same kind of teaching. But I think it's really important that we apply it to ourselves and our practice above everything else. It's a work in progress, like everything in meditation, it's a work in progress. But the emotional literacy side of it says that if we can accept where we are and how we're doing for now, then that's a positive thing. The other thing is, if you are traumatized by breathing, but you want to do a sitting meditation, or you want to do some focusing meditations, don't use the breath. Allow the breath just to continue anyway. It'll do it anyway, so you don't need to worry about that. You can forget about it and let your body just breathe. But I use rocking meditation. I said in the last video that there were some tricks I used to get through a longer sit meditation at Plum Village. If my body is restless, sometimes it is, sometimes it's less so. It depends what time of day it is, what I've done physical activity wise, how tired I am, lots of other things involved. Certainly I don't drink caffeine because that makes my body twitch even more. But if I just gently rock and focus on the rocking, it releases the tension in my body and it gives me something to focus on, so I can rock backwards and forwards. I don't think about my breathing. with my eyes closed or open, I can just focus my mind on that movement, on the experience of controlling the movement, of being with the movement, of enjoying the movement. And my body is less likely to jerk out of its chair or its kneeling stool if I can still get down there with my knees. It's less likely to jump me out of my chair and get me rushing off somewhere else because it needs to do something. It's already doing something. It might be a little thing, but it's a way of pacifying that restlessness in the ADHD body. Also, a lot of people use rocking, perhaps sometimes a bit more vigorously like this, as a form of stimming or self-stimulation. It's quite commonly seen as a maladaptive behaviour. But there's lots of little stimming type behaviours that we neurodivergent people have. One of mine is counting on my fingers like that. I might count panes of glass in a series of windows in a room I'm sitting in. I might count, if I'm talking to somebody, I might be counting the balance between consonants and vowels in the words that I'm speaking. So I might pick a phrase, say, hello, it'd be HELLO, how are you today? And I like it when I get round numbers. I like it if I can get a phrase that's got the same number of consonants and the same number of vowels over the phrase. So I like symmetry, so I'm always looking for symmetry. I like whole numbers, or I don't like prime numbers very much. I find them very disturbing because you can't do anything with them. I know they're very clever and very interesting for mathematicians, but for neurodivergent people, they're not very helpful at all. Well, not for me anyway. I need things to be divisible. I need to be able to divide things up, to multiply them, to play with them. And that, I find, soothes my brain, soothes my mind. So what I say with all of these forms of self-stimulation, whether it's a rocking motion or it's some other activity that you use, these are mine, but you'll all find you've got your own, to do them mindfully, to do them with conscious awareness. I know that if I'm feeling agitated, if I just sit with my hands on my knees and I do my fingers across my knees with a phrase, then it could be calm, be happy, which was the original name of this course that I was teaching. Or it could be, in this moment, everything is safe, I'm safe, which I'll come back to these mantras later. Or right here, right now is all that exists. And I'll play with those. And as long as I've got a kind of a balance of, or something that I can divide, like it's half consonants to vowels, or half vowels to consonants rather, or whatever, something like that. Or else I'll find myself adding words just to get the evenness out, or just to get the division working. But that's okay. But as long as I know that I'm doing that and I know why I'm doing it, so I'm doing it mindfully, I'm doing it consciously, and I'm doing it mindfully, and I'm doing it with a very focused mind, then I consider that to be part of my mindfulness practice. I consider that to be part of my intentional acting in the world, activating my brain, activating my mindful capacity, and embracing and accepting my neurodivergency and my trauma as well. Sometimes I just have to rock because I'm self-soothing for having been traumatized. I get re-traumatized a few times a year. It's tough. I'll talk about that in another video. But for now, just think about other ways in which you can use your neurodivergent behaviors actively and consciously as part of your mindfulness practice. So if the breath is difficult for you, use the breath if you can. It's a really good one. You've got it with you. As I say, if you're not breathing, then you're dead, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to practice meditation anymore anyway. But if you can, use other things. If you find the breath difficult, use other things instead. They're accessible, they're easy. Play with the practice, play with the options, and see what works for you. So thank you for listening.